If you're not familiar, today Amazon released a new series called Secret Level. Each episode is about a single video game, and the video game they've chosen for Warhammer was, of course, the new Space Marine 2 game. And so they've written this and made this new episode on Lieutenant Titus, and it is absolutely epic. If you have not seen it, it is genuinely worth checking out online, so please do. The really cool thing about this story is it gives us this kind of important background to Titus, and also a strong hint at his future, because if you're not familiar, at the end of Space Marine 2, Marnius Calgar declares to the rest of the Ultramarines that Titus is fundamentally built different. And they clearly ran with that idea, because in this episode, once again, he demonstrates tremendous ability that other Space Marines just don't seem to have. Right from the off, the entire setting, they got right. There is so clearly an Astartes touch in this. I believe the actual editor of the Astartes series worked on this, and that is so evident. Like, the vibe has to be right, the way Space Marines move has to be right, and they just crushed it. That brutality in combat, the headbutting kills, and the way the bolt shells don't just kill, they literally, explode, blowing these cultists apart. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. It's got me just so hyped. If you're someone that somehow found this stream because, you're just interested, having seen that episode online, or maybe you played Space Marine 2, a really crazy thing that might shock you is that Ultramarines are typically spoken about as the boring chapter. They are the boring Space Marines. They are kind of like the jack of all trades. The idea that they have now this, they've been introduced as these absolute badasses was fantastic. The amazing thing about the story is that, just like with Astartes, you have so little dialogue, right? You have so little conversation, but you still get this massive sense that there's a huge relationship between them. As soon as Titus kind of calls him old man, of course you get that vibe. The Space Marine he's talking to is clearly incredibly old, the sergeant. And this sergeant might well be one of the oldest Space Marines in the Ultramarines, maybe near enough as old as Chaplain Cassius, who is the current oldest Space Marine in the Ultramarines. He clearly found Titus as a child. And what was quite surprising to me was this description of Titus as a kid. He talks about how he's full of anger and rage. The purpose of that within the story is to talk about the idea of Space Marines and how they take this child who's full of these emotions and they forge him into a weapon who's got his, faith, as it were, in the Imperium. That's kind of a really interesting dichotomy, because when we have a look at Titus's lore, which we're going to look a bit more at tomorrow, it's quite bizarre to me, because Titus, throughout his kind of tenure as an Ultramarine, is kind of like the ultimate good boy. So the newer lore, although of course we have his rivalry with Leandros, it talks a lot more about his kind of back and forth with Sicarius. Of course, Titus was chosen to be captain before Sicarius. And where Sicarius, if you're not familiar with Sicarius, in the books, in like Blades of Damocles, he's this like ridiculously arrogant character, and the Ultramarines don't really like him because of how he behaves. Titus, on the other hand, is like this exemplar Space Marine. All of the Space Marines love Titus. So it's kind of fantastic to me that Titus actually has this kind of almost Cornian upbringing, this idea that he's just a child full of rage, made his way through those Ultramarines trials, clearly because he's just furious at his upbringing. And I believe the world he grew up on was an agri world, if I remember correctly from the lore, and so he came up from very humble origins, whereas someone like Sicarius comes from a very noble house on Talisar and was trained to be an incredible swordsman. He would have been an incredible swordsman even if he hadn't been a Space Marine. There's a real difference between the two, and this has added so much depth to Titus. I'm guessing this one is on the Alpha Legion. Yes, it's on the Alpha Legion. They just look like Ultramarines. If anything, this would have been an easy one to put the veneer of Alpha Legion on, because of course they're covered in dust for a lot of it. But yeah, it was just fantastic. Like the grim darkness of the way they were carrying the coffin, and that they reveal when they get into the temple that this is actually the someone inside of that who comes out and immediately starts praying. Just absolutely brutal. They put an Ultramarines lieutenant onto this suicide mission. The chaos, the Zechian sorcerer, and I was certain that Zechian sorcerer was that they fight in the episode was going to be a demon, or at least a demon prince, because of course it's so freaky, and they did a really great job on those animations. It was fantastic. But according to the credits, it's just a sorcerer, which really shows you how much Tzeentch can, taking the blessings of Tzeentch is often a really bad idea. But yeah, he was incredibly powerful, and the death of that first Ultramarine was horrifying. It was kind of like in Wolverine and Deadpool. If you saw that, like how the way Cassandra Nova, I think is, she kills the people when she gets inside of their mind. It was absolutely horrifying. But once again, we see Titus show this unbelievable resilience. So Titus has done this 3 times now. So not only was he resilient, of course, in Space Marine 1, there was an engagement before Space Marine 1 when Lieutenant Titus took on, was involved against another Chaos, another crusade, another engagement against Chaos Space Marines. And he showed resilience against the forces of Chaos. So he clearly has something about him. And Marnius Calgar's words that, the Inquisition just doesn't understand the idea that Titus, is such an ardent servant of the Emperor, he can never be corrupted. I'm still not buying that, man. I still think there has to be more to Titus. Obviously, I don't think he can really be a blank because that would have affected the Sorcerer more. But there's something about Titus that is different, right? Like, the Tzeentch and Sorcerer, they used kind of time stop powers, and he was still able to get his way through that. I thought it was badass. Yeah, let me know in the comments, what do you guys think? Lads, you want to inject this into your veins? You absolutely will do, man. I mean, I'm filled with so much happiness for our Ultramarines fans. And, everyone's an Ultramarines fan to some degree. They're like Ferrari of Warhammer. But, like, I'm also full of rage. I really hope we get something like the Dark Angels. It would just be fantastic. But, yeah, absolutely amazing. And, yeah, Titus is definitely becoming one of the great thing about it is that, like, the Titus as a character could just be a very bland, like, generic Space Marine, and I really like that they've made him different and made him, seemingly unique as an Astarte. That gave me the same feels as the Vader walk. Yeah, I get that. I mean, yeah, it really did, and you get that feel of just how powerful Space Marines are, epically. Like when they take down the first wave of cultists on bikes, and you're like, okay, yeah, fair enough. And then when they're just wading through people, just absolutely epic. And then Titus taking out a tank, it's amazing. And the melter charge just blowing up the tank as they just walk away. Just what a scene, man. Yeah, they're absolutely fantastic. Greedo the Green, thank you so much for the super chat. Now we know they can give us some good Warhammer 40k shows. I mean, this is the other news of the day, right? Is that Henry Cavill has now confirmed that the Amazon deal with Games Workshop has been completed. Very exciting times. And he was talking about, I think there's an Instagram post where he spoke about it. And he was saying that they've been in these concept rooms. They've been having their discussions. They've been trying to figure out, what it is they're going to do. And of course, we've all been talking about it. Now, what should they do? Should they do something new? What stories would be good to adapt? Is going for Space Marines just too much? I mean, if they can do what they've done for that episode as a TV show, I appreciate it's clearly taken a long time to put this together. But if they can do a 6-part series, I think that's doable. I think that's totally doable, man. I honestly think it was just epic. And I know a lot of people were like, hey, Space Marines are too over the top. But like, I think as you can see today, the truth about Space Marines is Space Marines are not that complicated. There's obviously they have a depth of lore, but their surface lore is very simple to understand. They're basically superheroes. So yeah, I'm really curious to see how like non-40k fans respond to this. Just as we saw Space Marine 2 be a huge driver for people in the setting, I can't wait to see the impact of this. But yeah, let me know, of course, as well. What do you think Henry Cavill should do? Do you think it should be something new? Are there any book series you're like, I think that would work especially well? Of course, we've not seen. There are some authors that I'm sure you guys have been looking at as well, where there are some authors that haven't been churning out as many books as they normally do, which might just be because they've got their own stuff on. It might be because they've got like family stuff, personal stuff, whatever. But I can't help but wonder, are they involved in these talks? And are they having these conversations about what would be good to adapt? Because, you've got, Dan Abnett, Graham McNeil, these authors that are not only great authors, but they have had their works already turned into TV shows, and so, or films, and so they've got this great experience. So Games Workshop is really set up for success here, as is Amazon. So this should be the deal of a century. Games Workshop don't need this deal to be the most favorable deal in the world, because anything that leads to Warhammer sales is just massive revenue. So, I mean, yeah, happy days for them. I think I saw something today. I think Amazon have acquired some rights for selling merch. So I guess we'll see, which would make sense because, of course, that's a lot of money. The Emperor has blessed his champion. I mean, given that we had this moment at the end of Space Marine 2, where you have Titus, hear the words, Rai, son of Guilliman, and then they edited it, and now it seems like those words came from the Emperor of Mankind, the awakened Emperor of Mankind. If you're not familiar, the Emperor never used to talk to people like he does today. This is a new thing in Warhammer, and he's clearly watching over people like Titus, the greatest Space Marines in the Imperium, and it's cool, isn't it? It's so cool. Oh god. Where were we? Voice from a crag. I don't think it was a demon, but a sorcerer. At least it's in the credits. Yes, that's true. Yeah. Do you think the Henry Cavill show will get made? I do. Yeah, it's been confirmed today, basically, that he will do. Leandros was inevitably very furious at the fact that Titus didn't die today. I imagine he had a bit of a smirk on his face. Yeah, if you didn't see the new lore on Leandros that came out around Space Marine 2, it's not actually stored in the game. It came out around the game. We'll talk about it tomorrow. But Leandros is clearly, he's clearly trying to get Titus killed to some degree, I think. That's how I interpret it, at least. If that demon invaded the Lion's mind, it would be throttled to death. Very true. I mean, it's a very cool scene in the Lion's Primarch novel where the Crave, one of them invades the Primarch's mind, and the Lion informs them of just how big a mistake that is, because the Primarchs are not just big humans, they are warp creations, and the Primarchs clearly understand this at some instinctive level. Good boy doesn't mean anger issues aren't there. I guess the battlefield is where he vents up all the time. Yeah, I'm guessing so, and I think the idea is just that, of course, Titus was a very angry kid, raged against the fact that he presumably grew up in quite an impoverished background, but at the same time, it was still quite cool. I thought it was quite interesting, just because when we read the lore for Lieutenant Titus, they talk about how he's just everybody loved Titus before his incarceration, and everyone thought he was so amazing. There's this direct comparison with Sicarius, and it talks about how kind of jealous Sicarius was really of Titus, because Sicarius has the noble upbringing. Sicarius is the incredible swordsman, but Titus's mentality, his approach to being an Astarte and serving the Emperor of Mankind, just makes him a superlative warrior of the Imperium. And so yeah, it was just kind of cool having that dichotomy, I thought. The guy behind Astartes really set the bar for Warhammer 40k media. He really did set it high, didn't he? I mean, he did a fantastic job. To this day, we all still rave about it. Occasionally, I'm sure as we all do, I rewatch those episodes and I'm just stunned that one guy did that. Just blows my mind. I can't imagine having that level of talent. Just fantastic. Good Titus to be the star child. I'll be honest, I think that's pushing it. Right? I love where your head's at. I love it, but I think that's probably pushing it. But it's a fantastic idea. I think certainly the Emperor's kind of watching over him, and it fits very well with the Ultramarines, right? So if you're not familiar, in Guilliman's book, Guilliman himself is aware of this. He is aware that the Emperor is watching over him, and he's not really consulting him. And of course, it's very confusing for Guilliman, because Guilliman had his conversation with the Emperor, and he very much believes his father does not love him, but he is trying to serve mankind. But the Emperor seems to be taking a special case in Guilliman, and one of the things Guilliman talks about is this idea that, well, if my father is arguably a god, because of the power that he has within the universe, and that has a tangible impact, because of the way, he can very much see that faith works. He's met, children that are touched by the Emperor. Then he's starting to ask himself, does that affect me? Because everybody in the Imperium who believes the Master of Mankind is a god, or at least a lot of them, they also believe that Rabute Guilliman is a demigod. And so Guilliman is starting to wonder, is this going to change him? His father has clearly changed because of the belief in his divinity. Will this change Guilliman? Because they believe Guilliman is a literal demigod. And yeah, it's a fascinating idea. So in a way, Titus is kind of a lesser version of Guilliman, which I think works pretty well now. What happened to Sicarius? Why is Akaran captain now? There's a very long storyline with Sicarius. Sicarius kind of starts off as this really arrogant. I actually really like Sicarius as a character, and a lot of people don't. So Sicarius kind of starts off in like Blades of Damocles, where he's this space marine that the other space marines don't really like because he's incredibly arrogant, he's incredibly talented, and he wants a captaincy, and he doesn't get it. His brother Numitor gets it above him. Anyway, later on, he ends up being humbled. He fights against the Necrons, and he does end up gaining a captaincy. He is the captain of the Second Company, and after, of course, Titus is incarcerated. However, eventually, after Guilliman's return, Titus is lost in the war. His ship is lost, and he actually ends up coming out near this planet. And this is a story covered in Knights of Macragge, where this planet is not familiar with Space Marines. They don't really know what they are, and so they present themselves as the Knights of Macragge. Anyway, ultimately, he is able to he saves this world, fights more Necrons, and he makes his way back into the Standard Imperium. And he is therefore kind of left in limbo. So he's sort of put in charge of the Victrix Guard, and that's where we kind of see him in the Dark Imperium series. But there's a story that came out this week actually with Sicarius in it, and it's a follow-up of the Dawn of Fire series. So if you haven't been following Grotmus, Games Workshop's Grotmus Black Library series, this story's about £1.99. And basically, it looks like Sicarius has kind of completed his arc, and he's now this kind of like ridiculously humble character, kind of like Titus. So I would very much like to see a Titus Sicarius team up. I don't think Sicarius is going to care about being a captain. I think he's probably more likely to be some sort of champion of the Ultramarines. I think that's probably more fitting because, of course, people want Titus to be captain now. I mean, we all do really. But Akaran is therefore Akaran replaced Sicarius once he went missing. And the funny thing about Akaran is that Akaran was, I believe the lore says, Akaran was a scout when Titus was incarcerated. So there you go. It's a bit of a weird one. Mark, thank you so much for joining the channel. Check out the extra content. Check out the members content. But it was fantastic. But yeah, Sicarius is kind of different to Titus in that he's from a noble family, and he's this kind of ultimate swordsman. He has quite a famous duel with Farsight that was quite funny. I think Titus is an Emperor's champion. So, I mean, he is an Emperor's champion, but Emperor's champion is a specific kind of title in 40k that refers to the Black Templars. So, if you mean that, it's definitely like a similar. Definitely kind of like a similar feeling that like he is watched over by the Emperor, but I guess he's not a Black Templar as such. It depends on where they take the stories. If they want to do Warhammer, what they did to Star Wars, I'm out. I think that the nice thing is you kind of got a blank slate. So yeah, I guess we'll kind of see. The real question is if Cavill can get the Custodies in the show. Yeah, I mean, we all want him to play Constantine Valdor, right? That's the dream, okay? And that's his dream, right? I think he's probably been quite open about that. So yeah, there's a possibility that could happen, and it would be bloody fantastic. But yeah, it's be quite a lot. Custodians work so well historically because they are so mysterious within the setting. No one really knows much about them. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to see it. I'd love to be wrong. Caiaphas Cain would make for a good TV show. He could absolutely play a Cain. He could absolutely play a Gaunt. He could play an Eisenhorn. They'd all work. They'd all work well. There's a lot of beginners TV shows that would work. I think that, or something new I think would also work. That would probably be the safest, I guess. But yeah, Eisenhorn would definitely work. I thought it was already decided it was Eisenhorn. I don't think it's been decided from what it's said. And from Henry Cavill's post today, he said it's, all top secret. So that, yeah, they haven't released anything. I would love to see Trays in the Infinite in the Amazon TV show at least once. That would be cool. That would be very, very cool. Would love that. Could Titus be a parent psyker? I wish you mean latent, but sorry, yes, latent. No, not likely. So I guess in a way, all humans are psychers to some degree that aren't blanks, right? So this is this kind of idea that that Malcolm kind of espouses, which is that all human beings in Warhammer 40k that aren't blanks are psychers to some degree, just their souls burn with a very low fire. So in a way, he's sort of a psyker, but just as anyone else is. But I think it's more, yeah, the intervention of the Emperor. My wife was so annoyed when she found out that that was the only 40k episode. I know it definitely left you wanting more, didn't it? Especially the ending of Titus, putting on the helmet. That was badass. I like the tithes, just following the journeys of a black ship seems the way to go. Yeah, what do you think they're going to do about Warhammer Plus? I mean, obviously, it's no real threat to Amazon, but Amazon, might have been like, hey, I mean, if we want the rights, if we're getting the rights, we want the rights. So maybe there's going to be an issue there. I don't know. Yeah, it depends. Ultramarines are the greatest Space Marines. You high Sandman, Blood Ravens, hello. I don't think I ever said they're the greatest, but hello, Blood Ravens, I will say. I mean, seeing on Blood Ravens would be a really cool idea. And again, like the Blood Raven lore, of course, historically has been a bit fast and loose. So maybe there's a more higher likelihood they'll use that kind of lore. Pretty cool. I mean, again, using like a new chapter. Like crazy, if it was going to be on Space Marines, using a completely new chapter would be really cool. It'd be a really great thing to do. Because of course, again, it's completely new model range and upgrade sprue and all that kind of thing. Give me them cultist vehicles. Yeah, I'll have to double check, but like that tank, it kind of looked like some sort of like scrapped Leman Russ. Obviously it's got loads of spikes and stuff in it, but yeah, is it Leman Russ? Might be, but yeah, that was pretty cool. I think he kind of like run. People like to talk about how Space Marines are tanks, which is a very fair comparison. And yeah, the fact he can basically like run through tanks and buildings, which is pretty cool. I think it's looking Titus oriented. Idris Elba has been previewed already. Tom Hardy as Titus. I mean, I have no problem with that. That would be fantastic. Where do me Renix go? Yes, of course. Yeah, you talk about Blood Ravens. I can't remember who it was, but like someone shared online like a hilarious design for Space Marine 2, where they created like they were playing as Blood Ravens, but then their backpacks were Ultramarines, and that was just hilarious to me. I just thought that was so funny. Definitely Kane would be awesome, but a bit convoluted to write properly. Gaunt is a better fit, as it's written more movie-like. Yeah. The other thing I'm thinking though is like the first novels. I think maybe Kane 1 would be easier to do than Gaunt 1. Actually, I don't know. Yeah, a tough one. Hating on Ultramarines is so 2020. I mean, I think, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, to be honest, this episode was called "And They Shall Know No Fear," and of course, that's obviously a reference to the their Emperor's words. But "Know No Fear" is also one of the greatest Warhammer 40k books, in my opinion. I think it is so well written. I think it's some of Dan Abnett's finest work. Oh crap! I put another typo after I fixed that. But yes, I thought that was amazing. How about an anime adaptation? An anime adaptation would work really well. I think I would love to see that. Like, I think especially if you're going to do something that would be more expensive. Like if it is the case that they deem a Space Marine show is just too expensive, presumably you can do an anime type thing. Like what was that Star Wars anime that they did? It looked really cool. Like I think that was fantastic. Honestly, Leandros feels like a bad actor, posing as an uppity anti-heretic to sow dissent within the Ultramarines. I mean, my theory is, and I'm sure everyone that read the lore kind of feels this, Leandros clearly feels incredibly guilty about the fact that he basically got his captain killed, Trajan, and he's taking that out on Titus because Titus won the day that day. So he's clearly just been jealous of Titus ever since. And here's the thing, though, guys. I don't think Guilliman will let this shit stand. Guilliman is too smart, and I hope Guilliman has a couple of words, because some bullshit going on with Leandros, is there? Well, if it was agreed today, you've got 5 or 6 years before you're watching it. I work in film and TV. I hope not, but you might well be right. You might well be right. Commissar Yarrick origin story. I'm here for it. They should do something original. I'll cut it down on moaning. Keep stuff a surprise. Interesting. Titus is the Moonchild. I like that. Very good. The more I think about why Leandros ignores his Primarch's own feelings towards Titus, the more I realise Leandros simply can't be a real Ultramarine. I mean, if Titus gets to kill Leandros, that would be very satisfying, and very fitting. Controversial opinion maybe, but I like Sicarius better. A story is better when a character becomes humble, whereas it has always been humble. Yeah, I get what you mean, and I do think when I read the Titus story, if we didn't have the game for him, which obviously adds a lot of depth to the character, he would seem a bit, Mary Sue-esque. He's a bit kind of perfect in every way. Everyone kind of loves him in every capacity, and he's just fantastic. Whereas Sicarius has kind of got his issues and works on it. Are there any updates with the Drukhari Golden Throne or what Vashthor is up to? Thank you in advance. So Vashthor will almost certainly be in the new Dawn of Fire book. So he turns up to Pariah Nexus with Wormwood. So like he's bringing Caliban in. So yeah, he's getting involved there. That book is gonna be a mess, right? You got so many factions fighting it out. In terms of the Drukhari Golden Throne, nothing. Not since the Vaults of Terror series, which is pretty old now. What if the Grey Knights of the Second Legion, they have the Malal flavor of self-destruction, the Sisters event, or don't bring up the Sisters event. They really like to kill chaos, and they certainly are built different. I mean, the Sisters event doesn't really get referenced anymore because it's pretty dark. But they're not the Second Legion because we know how they're made. The truth is, yeah, we have the background of the Grey Knights. So if you want to read how the Grey Knights were made, read Buried Dagger, which is the final book of the Heresy. There will be characters in there that you will probably struggle to understand. You can probably Google them and you'll get a rough idea. But it's not actually the roughest read because a lot of that book is kind of an origin story. So yeah, I'd definitely check out that novel, and that covers the kind of creation of the Grey Knights and why they're not at the Siege of Terra. Thank you for joining me on the live stream. Cheers, guys. In the animation, those guys could have put some wheels on the Saiga in an honor box. Poor old fella must have got proper knocked about in there. Yeah, I did think that. I mean, I was like, I hope he was, there's some good cushioning in there, because not only is it not very nice, but it doesn't even make sense. Like, this guy is going to be a psyker, right? If he's disoriented or concussed because you've put him in this fucking coffin and dragged him about, it doesn't make any sense. He's not going to be able to help you. Are all the Primarchs psychically attuned? To some degree, yes. I mean, obviously, Angron can't really do anything now, since he had the Butcher's Nails. But yeah, they're all psychics to some degree. The Emperor used warp stuff in their creation. Just not to the same degree. Magnus is obviously another level, and Lorgar is also a very powerful psyker, but they will have some capability. Will it affect the Lion too? He's already being worshipped as a son of the Emperor. So it most likely will do, but right now, there's not actually that many worlds in the Lion's Protectorate compared to the number that know Guilliman is back. Kato Sicarius ought to just be the chapter champion of the Ultramarines. I agree. I think that would work well. I think that would be pretty cool. Plus, they used to release, I know obviously he's most famous for his Thalassarian blade, but they used to have a model for him with like lightning claws. And I quite like the idea that you can switch out weapons on him and he's just a champion that can wield anything. Is Captain Agamon, Ultramarines' first captain, still around? He is, yeah. Apparently there was a rivalry between him and Sicarius. So everyone kind of hates Sicarius at the start, basically. But he's pretty fine now. But yeah, he is still around. He's actually got a new model relatively recently. Well, I say new model. He's a standard character, but he's yeah, name's Agamon. Wasn't Titus on crusade with the Black Templars as part of his penance? So the Black Templars took him away, and he is then put in stasis for a long time as Inquisitor Thrax, captured. Inquisitor Thrax, it turns out, just hated Space Marines, and especially the first founding chapters. And so he just kind of like was collecting Space Marines and putting them on ice. It eventually came to pass that Thrax was corrupted, and so another Inquisitor, whose name I forget, ends up having to like go through Thrax's stuff, go through his keep, and he finds all these Space Marines on stasis, and the Inquisitor decided to just put them all in the Death Watch, so that they can just kind of serve the Emperor there. And it's quite sad because when Titus heard that, Titus came to believe that what had happened was he'd brought so much shame on the Ultramarines that they didn't want him back, which is pretty brutal. Chaos, didn't Guilliman say something along the lines of chaos isn't real, only will is to Mortarion? Perhaps Titus just got that indomitable human will. Yes, I can't remember the exact wording. I can Google it, but I can look them on the Kindle. But it's there is something like that. Nobody's will is stronger. Yeah, I remember. Breaking news. Jagatai Khan will return with the Dark Eldar from Commorragh to fix the Golden Throne. They turn the Golden Throne into a sidecar for Khan's motorcycle. The Emperor is saved. I mean, hey, it would be fun. I would be very surprised to see Khan working with the Drukhari, but crazy things have happened, I guess. I want a series set in Commorragh. Also, I read Leonard Hesperak's about a month ago. That was a really good book. If you like Commorragh, that's probably the most insight into Commorragh we've had in maybe ever. So yeah, it was a good book. Just joined, but you were pretty quiet. Oh, hang on, I can move that closer. There we go. I wouldn't be surprised. Oh, sorry. The Ultramarine fanboy. I'm an Ultramarine fanboy, and it was glorious. Each demons look a bit silly, but the one in the episode looks terrifying. He was terrifying, wasn't he? Thank you, Dante, super chat. Yeah, he was absolutely terrifying. Like, that was a horrific idea. They did that very well. I'm gonna watch the rest of the episodes as well, just because I thought, did a really good job. And like the animation style is really cool. And with Love, Death, and Robots, I believe they get like different animation teams to direct and make each episode, which is pretty cool. Alright, I'll turn up the volume ever so slightly. Okay. Siggy, again, thank you for super chat. Greetings, Sandman. Do all Iron Halos not provide a force field? I was surprised the veteran Halos didn't kick in like Cowguards did. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's not an exact science, but yeah, roughly speaking, that's kind of what they do. But they're not absolutely certain. 4-up armor save, mate. And I guess the psychic damage wouldn't affect it, but I guess they realistically are going to fail, as is cinematically most impressive. So there we go. Did you watch The Awakening? I did. That's the one from Warhammer Plus, right? So yeah, I thought that was quite interesting. I thought they were good. And I thought all the stuff with the zombie Krieg from Cesarak? Yeah, Cesarak.
was really good as well. Titus's Theo Reborn. I mean, interestingly, Guilliman calls Sicarius Titus Reborn, Theo Reborn in Dark Imperium. If you're not familiar, Theo is a very famous Ultramarine from the Heresy, and he's kind of like a not by the book Ultramarine, but Guilliman really likes him. So yeah. I don't care what year it is. I will hate on Ultramarines forever. Ah, man. I mean, hey, as the Dark Angels of the Ultramarines, we have our history, but I think we get along. We're fine now. We're all right. Bygones be bygones. Are you pumped about the Dark Angels cosmetic pack in Space Marine 2? I am, man. I'm assuming I have to download an update after this, but I'll probably, do that after this. Because, it's going to be epic. I really want to just create an armor set that looks like the Inner Circle companions. And, you can't quite do it yet. Like, I'm also not that good at the game, so I can't unlock the higher leveled armor. Which does remind me, actually. So, thankfully, a couple of people have done this, who I'm incredibly grateful for. Some of the videos I've been working on use Space Marine 2 footage. So if you don't mind me using your footage, and you don't mind recording it, if you can record it and then send it to me, which I can help you with that, give you a link, then please do. I can use it in videos because it's very useful. But it has to be the right ratio, like 1920 1080. But that's pretty much it. Oh, actually, and ideally, please don't have names on in case anyone's got any like horrific names and you're playing up against, and YouTube puts me in trouble. Is my audio fixed now? I got a couple of comments. I hope that's better. How fun would a Skaven show be? A Skaven show would be epic. That would be very, very, very cool. Why did Titus have the same amount of service studs as the other Marine? I mean, I get it's a good question. I presume that other Marine is thereby not that much older than Titus. However, you can't really tell the colouring of the studs. So, I mean, the whole way they've done the studs is like really cool. It looks great, but they've not been very consistent in how they implement studs within Warhammer 40k. So they might mean slightly different things. So is Titus kind of a saint now? Maybe. He might be touched by the Emperor to some degree. I think a saint typically has to believe in the divinity of the master of mankind, but he's certainly touched by the Emperor, which is a similar idea. If I had to guess, Amazon already has power armor and set crew from the Fallout show, very true, and Orc and weapons crew from the Lord of the Rings show. So I would bet it's going to be Space Marines and Orcs. I mean, hey, this is not bad logic, but it's different power armor. I thought the Fallout power armor looked good, and I enjoyed Fallout. I never really played the games, so I did enjoy that. But it's kind of a different type, isn't it? I'm not certain live action Space Marines will work without being incredibly expensive, but God, I'd love to be wrong. I'd love to be wrong. It's probably a stasis box. I mean, presumably it's it keeps me in stasis because it wouldn't really work otherwise. Is Titus the new Uriel or Ventris? I don't think so. I mean, Ventris is still about. I mean, he got a model like a few years ago, and Graham McNeil, I think, is kind of like in some. I'm not certain how much he's still writing for GW, but I mean, I think we'll get a new Ventris book. He actually has a lot of lore, to be fair, Ventris. Wish we had some more news on the King in Yellow. It would be funny if Valdor turned up with a merry band of Thunder Warriors. Yeah, it would be interesting. I mean, I guess we're all waiting on that final Beckwin novel. What was the date of it? When was Beckwin Penance? So Beckwin Penance was 2021. And when was Beckwin Pariah? Beckwin Pariah was $2012. So yeah, it's not looking good. So it might still be quite a few years for that, but I guess we'll see. God, has it already been that long since Pariah? That's a long time. But hey ho, yeah. So it could still be a while, I'm afraid. But I hope it's not. How much can GW move time without making Dante too old to finish the prophecy? Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know. It's definitely an issue, but I don't know to what degree. I don't know how old you can make Dante and him become kind of like, you know, unable to properly operate. Of course, you have in the Salamander series, I forget his name, but there's a salamander who's like 10,000 years old, and he's basically fused to his armor, so he can't properly work. But Dante is a Primaris Marine now, so presumably the rules are a bit different. Dark Angels are the best Chaos Space Marine army to collect. How dare you? But I will say that's also true. The Fallen Army does look really good. Wait. I want them to create a slapshot comedy of the Horus Heresy, where Horus is played by Leslie Nelson and the Emperor is played by Jonathan Banks. I mean, hey, if 40k gets big enough, I could see that kind of thing happening, man. We need a Gotrek and Felix show. That would be a great shout for fantasy show. I'll be interested to see whether they touch fantasy much at all. The problem is, I'm sorry, fantasy fans, but the Warhammer Fantasy setting isn't a particularly strong fantasy setting. That sounds harsh, but like the thing is about Warhammer 40k that's so weird is that 40k shouldn't be as good as it is. It's very unlikely 40k is this really good and engaging setting, but in fantasy series, you've got a lot of competition there, and I don't know if it works, but yeah, I still always have a soft spot for fantasy. Leandros reminds me of Erebus for some reason. We all know the reason. He's a heretic. He pisses me off so much, especially for an Ultramarine chaplain, a chapter known for their rational thinking compared to the rest. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Absolute bastard. I hope Guilliman shows him what's what. The Amazon Prime episode was awesome, but if I had to nitpick, it seems a bit odd to me that a squad would be dispatched on mission like that without a librarian. The poor Psyker got smashed. Yeah, it's a great question, Dean. I don't know why they didn't do that. I mean, presumably Tigurius could have sorted that one. Tigurius is a very powerful Psyker, but yeah, I don't really know why they didn't. Maybe he just wasn't in the area and it had to be dealt with immediately. Is my mic still quiet? I can turn it up a little bit more, but I'm slightly worried I'm making it too loud. Do you guys think that Warhammer 40k has backed itself into a corner with all the supernatural warp demon stuff? I sometimes feel it would be better with more Xenos and less magic. That's tough. I mean, I think that there are certainly some concepts that are really dangerous because you end up undervaluing things. We spoke about time travel the other day, and that's the example where you can kind of undermine an entire setting with that. But generally speaking, no. I think we're kind of fine. Leandros and Erebus, the two most hated characters in Warhammer, and there are so many people to hate. It's quite the achievement. Very good point, Sarah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, very true. There are a few people less hated. I think the videos I've done on Titus, I've never had more angry comments about a character, Leandros, of course. So, yeah, he's definitely one of the most hated. Always wondered if the influence of chaos stretches beyond the galaxy. Any good lore on what goes beyond the Milky Way? You have to ask the Silent King. So, yeah, the Silent King does go beyond the galaxy and into the void. But, at the same time, presumably it is in other galaxies. And the reason for that is because it's a reflection of our reality. So, yeah, and the Chaos Gods would like to dominate all realms. What would be an interesting development, I guess, to that idea, and maybe it wouldn't really hurt the setting, would be to say like, oh, maybe the Chaos Gods have conquered other galaxies or something like crazy like that. I'm on the 3rd book of the Vaults of Terror and I'm struggling, to be honest. Definitely the best one. Like, so the first one's pretty good. Second one's pretty slow. The third one has a really strong ending. Yeah, the second one is definitely the slowest, but the first one and the third one are great. Fast and Furious, Horus Heresy, #family. Yeah. Vin Diesel would work. Do you think the Great Horned Rat will bring Skaven to 40k? What do you mean, because the Great Horned Rat is now a god? I don't think so. But I tell you what's actually one video I do want to do. I've actually got some help from Pancreas and I work for this. Because one of the videos I wanted to work on was, there's a part in The End and the Death, Volume 1, where it talks about all of the demons Horus has summoned to Terra. All of the greater demons at the very least. And of course, all of the most powerful demons are fighting on Terra. You've got Be'lakor, you've got each of the favoured of the 4, and then you've got like all of these demons that are and demon princes, like Space Marine princes, all these kind of demon princes and demons that are have been distributed throughout novels across 40k. And Dan Abnett clearly went through all of these books and pulled all of these demons together. It's a really cool passage. However, one of those demons, and I forget the name, and I don't think I can even pronounce it properly. It's a Skaven demon prince. That's where it comes up in the lore. Because there was only one I didn't recognize. I was like, who's that guy? And yes, some sort of Skaven demon prince. So I was like, who is this guy? Do you know him? And yeah, he recorded a little bit for me. So I will put that in the video, which would be pretty fun, I think. Yeah, Pancreas, if you've not checked out Colin's channel, Pancreas No Work, it is very, very funny. And yeah, he makes great content. It's crazy to see how every decade of 40k has a distinct feel. 90s were goofy and edgy. Early 2000s was very grunge. That's very true. And I think that this era is, and a lot of people will reel against this, and I understand why. But I think this era is probably more hopeful. I think that Games Workshop have changed their tune in terms of like, there is no hope for the Imperium. One of the streams I think I'll probably do this month will be the Emperor of Mankind's plan for victory. Because I truly believe that there is a plan. One of the things that happens at the end and the death is it's not, a lot of people I think, and I think this is one of those things that has some truth in it, and then it gets developed on Reddit, and then a YouTube repeats it. There's this idea that's talked about a lot about how the Chaos Gods are very happy with the state of the galaxy today, and that they've won. And that's not the case. The Chaos Gods are furious at the fact that Horus lost. They are very angry. They see it as a true loss. And it's more the fact that because Horus has lost, there is now hope for mankind. And I genuinely believe that hope exists. And I'm not saying the Emperor will necessarily win. But the truth is, you have to leave in some hope, guys. It's just not interesting if there's no... Like, I know some people will disagree with this, and I have to say it's great. But I don't think that's true for most people. I think most people don't want to read a story if there's no chance of the good guys, or the protagonist at the very least, winning, coming out on top. So I think that, yeah, I think that that's probably the new era we're in. This era where there's hope in the Imperium of Man again. There's hope of the Star Child returning. The Primarchs are coming home. And it's pretty exciting. I'm currently listening to Kingmaker by Robert Rath. It's an Assassinorum book. I think it would be a good movie or a few episodes. Yeah, I mean, it's a very popular short story, that one of the better ones. And I get where you're coming from. I think there's a good chance that they do like a short story and adapt that. That would work well. And one of the things that I'd love to see, right, is do bits from the Siege of Terra, but do it kind of like the style you've done here. Do it where you just kind of like cover scenes, epic battles and moments and sacrifices of incredible heroes and, what the average man and woman were doing during the heresy. I think those kind of things would work well. I don't think you have to tell this kind of mammoth story from start to finish. And I think people people kind of get it. You know, if there's a war on, they can kind of see and then do their best. But if humanity and the Emperor win, what will be the next thing to ruin everything in 50k when everything falls apart? You'll need someone to be at war with, or well, several things. Yeah, sorry, that doesn't remind me. I should say, I'm not saying that I actually think that the Emperor will win in the anytime soon. But I mean, like, hope will remain within the setting forever. Fury of Magnus literally has the Emperor show someone the 40k universe, and it explicitly states the future war is undecided. Yeah, that's true. And I think that Malkador also shows something similar to the new Grey Knights. So he has like a vision of what I think is the implication is it's the Great Rift. So yeah, I think that it kind of is the case, I think. But yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people like this idea that 40k has this particular grimdark vibe of like there's no hope and it's just humanity on its last legs. And hey, I get it. There's nothing wrong with liking what you like, but I don't think that's the most popular way to go. I'm just being honest, and I think that Games Workshop have recognized that. Logar Aurelian will make everything right and put Guilliman down once more. That would be a showdown. Of all the showdowns, I would love to see that. Because, of course, Guilliman, we're so used to him being this kind of epic politician and manipulating the High Lords of Terra and bowing down to the Space Hulls and doing all this kind of stuff. And it would be great to just have an angry Guilliman scene where he just, like, no compunction and just beats the ever-living hell out of Demon Logar. Would be good. Big Monkey King, thank you so much for the super chat. Do you think they should wait before they introduce Space Marines? I feel like they look too cool and everything else would be uninteresting. I get where you're coming from, but I mean, in the same respect, right? Okay, so you have Rogue One. That was released long after Star Wars had been established as a series, and that was still great, and that's following kind of the Rebels. So I think that it's possible that kind of thing would work. So I don't necessarily think you have to avoid it in that respect. But I think that realistically, what they want to start with is to choose something that really encapsulates 40k, I guess, but has this super wide appeal. And yeah, maybe like an Inquisitor series, Gaunt's Ghosts, for obvious reasons. Those would work well. I guess the problem with Caiaphas Cain is you have some really big battles. So I don't know if it will work too well. Or is it like for a cheap? Do you think Fabius Bile will play a big part or even show up in the upcoming Emperor's Children's stories coming out next year? And do you think he will get a new model? I think he already had a new model relatively recently, so I don't think he's getting a new model anytime soon. But to your other question, I don't think so. I think he is now a separate thing. I don't know what they're going to do with the New Men storyline. It is quite radical, and it's kind of reached its conclusion, really, to start, having Fabius Bile kind of spread them about the galaxy. But he's they've kind of perfected themselves. So, yeah, I don't really know what they're going to do. I don't really know what you do with his storyline. Of course, he has to create the new Chaos Space Marine variant. That has to be done first, or before Abaddon kills him. But once that's done, yeah, he's created his perfect beings, and he'll kind of, take that forward. I don't know. But yeah, I don't think he will be a part of the Emperor's Children range. I don't think that will happen. I want the Interrex to come back as a minor faction in 40k. They were literally the closest thing to good guys in the setting. I think it would be a good way of showing just how bad the Imperium is. I mean, I suspect if we found out more about the Interrex, they aren't as good as you might believe, but I get where you're coming from. But I think it's like the way they kind of force everyone else to kind of give up their weapons. There's things like that. They were a bit like, ooh, not so sure about that. But yeah, I get where you're coming from compared to the Imperium. Isn't there concern among Chaos that opening the Great Rift made the Emperor too OP for them to handle? I agree. After 30 plus years, it's time for some hope. Yeah, I mean, that is true. And what's weird is Abaddon's kind of changed tact now, where he's kind of course, fulfilling this plot line around Vashthor the Archifane and this kind of weapon and key. So we don't really know, if he's got any interest in kind of pushing on to Terra through Vigilus, which was the plan. Me and my wife are new to Warhammer 40k. We love your videos. Thanks for answering my questions about Bile. No worries, man. I have done. Yeah, I mean, do check out the Alpha Primus video where I talk about that. I also did a breakdown of a Gene Filer with a friend, which should be on the lives. So yeah, check that as well. Monkey King, thank you for the Big 10. Okay, last one. Since Custodes are the natural predators of the Space Marines, do you consider the Primarchs the natural predators of the Custodes since they're stronger than them? Oh, maybe. I mean, in some respect, there's a really. I have to put this in a. If I do a video on Custodes, I'll definitely put this in. There's a part in the Dawn of Fire series where they run through this simulation of could they kill Guilliman, the Custodians, and they kind of have appeared to have run this simulation multiple times, and I can't remember the exact conclusion that they come to, but they come to some sort of conclusion that, like, if Guilliman is corrupted, they can kill Guilliman if there's like 3 of them and they strike first within the throne room. So, something like that, right? The question is, like, how close can they let Guilliman get to the Emperor before they have to kill him? Which is pretty cool. So in a way, the Custodians are just, the predators of Space Marines and Primarchs. In that respect, I've never seen. I would be interested to see how a single Primarch, outside of like Horus, take on many Custodians at once. Because, like, I don't know if you've ever read that short story where you have the 3 Custodians, and it's the Brazen Drakes chapter, if I remember correctly. And like 3 Custodians wipe out so many Space Marines. It's I can't imagine a Primarch doing that well against Custodians, but I guess it depends on the Primarch. I guess it depends. Alfarius messes one up quite easily. What do you think the Votan are up to? So I'm actually reading Haikar's Oath right now. So I'll probably do a stream on that maybe later this week. Yeah, I guess it might be later this week. Yeah, because I think that I've read that, and I've obviously read the Dawn of Fire novel as well. So that's 2 books for Leagues of Votan. So I'll be interested to give you some like immediate thoughts, and then once the Leagues of Votan Codex is out, so then we've got 2 codexes, 2 novels. At that point, I'll probably put together like a full video on them, which we're starting to get the lore for them bit by bit. I'm a little bit sad we haven't seen more on Uthar the Destined, unless he appears in the second half of this book. But he seems quite interesting. But outside of that, I don't know. In terms of what are they up to, both of the books so far, they're very capitalist. So they are very kind of focused on money and income, and they are able to do things, for example, like captured like Tyranid vessels and strip them for parts, essentially, which is pretty badass. And they're essentially, in a capitalist war. They're constantly trying to, build up their kin, the kindred, as it were, and make themselves more wealthy. But I think that there are definitely discussions in the books about should they have a more closer allyship with the Imperium or not. I quite like the idea that you bring the Leagues of Votan in to fix the Golden Throne. That would work quite well, and I think that would be fitting. And of course, it doesn't have to be all Votan, because you can have some of them be angry about working with the Imperium and some not. But I guess we'll see. It is said that the Imperium have been encroaching on the Votan's territory more than ever now. So, presumably, we'll also see some conflict. But thank you for the super chat and just quit already. Thank you so much. The only thing I like about Farsight is that he read the Codex, then wrote how to counter it. Yeah, he does do that. The Miror Codex is called. And it's quite funny. And it's quite funny how it's used, because, of course, the Miror Codex is kind of useless against certain chapters. And this comes up in the story where you have some Imperial Fists and Ultramarines where the Miror Codex is incredibly useful because you can basically predict everything they say. But they do. But when you fight against the Raven Guard or the White Scars, for example, it's less useful. So it depends. But he also writes a really great book, The Book of the Beast. He also writes that in Farsight, and the Book of the Beast is very useful because he's able to really manipulate orcs with it. There's a part in the story where he basically kind of like calls a war, and so they all charge him, and then he mows them down, which is pretty cool. Okay, really last one. Thank you for the super chat, Big Monkey King. Appreciate it so much. Was that after or before Guilliman killed a bunch of Space Marines to which the Custodians were doubting themselves? Guilliman killed a bunch of Space Marines to which the Custodians were doubting themselves. Sorry, I'm not sure what that means. What's that a reference to? If you give me a book, that might help. Guilliman killed a bunch of Space Marines to which the Custodians were doubting themselves. I have to look. Yeah, I'm not certain. Yeah, if you have a reference for it, let me put it in the chat and I'll have a look. The Eldar as a whole need to be treated with more respect. I hope they get treated better going forward. Yeah, I mean, I think that we're due a big Asdrubial Vect introduction. If you haven't read the latest Lilith Hesperax novel, are you thinking about the Black Templars? And you put Dawn of Fire. Are you thinking about the Black Templars and the Custodes? Because there's a bunch of Black Templars that end up, they don't get killed, but they did betray a Custodian and the Primaris because they didn't want the Black Templars being used. So the more Black Templar, more Space Marines are sent to go in find out what happened to these Space Marines and a Custodian, but they end up dying as a result of they've been used against the Word Bearers. But yes, in terms of Space Marines, Eldar, going back. So Asdrubial Vect does appear in the Lilith Hesperax novel, the one with Mike Brooks wrote, and that was really interesting. We see a lot more on him, and he seems a genuinely very kind of pretty scary character. Even her like big win at the end of the book, it's not so much a win, depending on how you view these things. But I think he needs more focus. I think he needs a novel or something. My bad, Dark Imperium. In Dark Imperium, Guilliman killed a bunch of Space Marines to which the Custodians were doubting themselves. Let's have a look. I'll take another question in the meantime. Are there any more snippets of the Dark Angels reacting to the Lion's return, or do we have to wait for future books for that? There's not a lot. I mean, there's like there are references to Guilliman, to the Lion kind of rocking up to defend successor chapters, which is kind of cool because if you play a successor chapter in Warhammer 40k, then you can absolutely just kind of run the line with them, which would make sense. And of course, it works well because you have this a forest walking ability of the Lion, and he's constantly off questing, which works well. So there's that. But in terms of more successor chapters, I think unfortunately we'll have to wait for that. But presumably there'll be some sort of stories on like Inner Circle companions being utilized within successor chapters, because I'm not entirely clear how that's all going to work. Presumably they act kind of like as spies for the Lion or something like that, or his informants. My bad, Dark Imperium. So that story is definitely set before Dark Imperium, to answer your original question. But in terms of what you're talking about, Guilliman killing the Space Marines, I'm not entirely I'm not sure what there's a referral to. If you mean Chaos Space Marines, he definitely kills a lot of Chaos Space Marines. But in terms of like Loyalist Space Marines, I don't think he kills any Loyalist Space Marines in Dark Imperium, if I remember correctly. He's got enough on his plate. In the book with Morty vs. Guilliman, Custodians point out there is no point guarding him. Oh, I see. Is that what you're referring to? Yeah, that does come up in the book. But Sicarius is Guilliman's guardian in the Dark Imperium series, basically. Has Cypher met the Lion yet in the new lore since his return? Not as far as we know, but I will say, I mentioned this earlier, that there is a plot line about the Custodians following Cypher after Cypher's novel, First of the Lord of the Fallen, and they follow him, presumably, like, you know, across the galaxy, the Custodians. So I think there's a good chance the Lion will meet the Custodians before anyone else. I think that might work. And it'll be interesting to see the Custodians' kind of thoughts more on the Lion, because presumably they find him difficult, but there's not a lot on their interactions. Sorry, Big Monkey King. I hope I answered that question correctly. But if you message me, I'll take another look. But I don't think that I don't think I remember that in the series. I'll be honest with you. If the Khan returns next, what item or ability of the Emperor's would you give him? All right, so I would give the Khan the Emperor's kind of like eagle, right? You know, he has like a big golden eagle on his armor. I would have that be a real eagle, and that's like some sort of like magical golden eagle, and I would have the Khan basically be able to control that, and it kind of aids the Khan. I think that would be badass. I would probably straight up make the Khan a Psyker. I think some of the loyalists have to become Psykers to add some variation amongst the Primarchs, and the Khan is probably more of that kind of element, and certainly the White Scars have a great understanding there. So I would have probably the Khan and Leman Russ become straight up Psykers. Probably, you know, obviously, yeah, preferring that kind of White Scars discipline of storms and lightning, but still, I would do that. That's what I would do. Killing one of the gods would be a big step too close to an end time scenario like Fantasy, and they will draw out 40k a lot longer than they should. They're just my question. Sorry, that's a response to GW set them up to fail unless the plan was to go Fantasy and actually kill Slaanesh. I mean, I don't think you have to actually kill Slaanesh is the thing, right? So there are definitely some big victories you can deal. You can deal for the Eldari against the forces of Slaanesh or Slaanesh herself without necessarily killing Slaanesh. Because, for example, there's a suggestion that some of the Eldar gods might survive in some way. Their souls have been consumed by the god of excess, but they might be in there somehow. So maybe it will be true. It will be possible, for example, that Iniad will be able to free, or that, you know, someone with the Crone Swords will be able to free some of the Eldar Pantheon, or one of the Eldar Pantheon. And imagine if the Eldar got like Volback, for example. That could be huge. So yeah, there's definitely some stuff you can do there. Thanks, Big Monkey King. Cool. Jellafella, thank you for the super chat. I don't want the only message I send to be about low mic volume, lol. So thank you for all your lore. Thanks very much. I mean, yeah, this is a new microphone, so you're most likely right. I'll have a look. I'll watch it back and see. You're probably right, but yeah, okay. I'll try and make a note of that. Give the Khan the Emperor's motorcycle that he totally had the whole time. You just didn't see it. Yeah, I mean, I quite like the idea that it each, you know, we spoke about this in that. I did a whole stream. It's actually now a video, I think, up on the channel. I quite like the idea that this, you know, Emperor's Armory falls to the Primarchs. I like the idea that it's the stuff we see on him in the classic artwork, right? Which is what they did with the Lion's Shield was very clever, and of course you can see the eagle. So yeah, I quite like that idea. Thank you, Super Chat. Mark of Talabercland. Sorry, I probably pronounced that wrong. Lorgar is the light and the truth. Repent. I mean, I hope, you know, I hope that we see. One of the things I hope we see with Lorgar is like mega chaos cults, like just to a degree we've never seen before. Not even like word bearers with them. Just Lorgar leading like some army of like 10 million cultists or something just completely nuts that would just be absolutely, you know, frenzied and mad. You could do really crazy stuff, and presumably that's what he's doing. That there's a suggestion in the Chaos Space Marine Codex that Lorgar is back and he's already doing this stuff, which is pretty cool. If Leman becomes a Psyker, Magnus is going to laugh. Yeah, I mean, there's this whole thing in what's it called? A Thousand Suns, where Araman becomes friends with this wolf priest. And I think it's a wolf priest, yeah. and you know they kind of like exchange magical abilities and like teach each other how to do their stuff, right? And this wolf priest ends up using this information against the Thousand Sons during the Council of Nicaea. Well, what's really funny about that is he also taught Ahriman how to do stuff, and like they're pretending that like that's not magic, and the reason they pretend it's not magic is because it comes from like the soul of Fenris or something like that. And you just kind of read this book like, guys, this is magic. And this is exactly what magic is. So yes, I think you're probably right, and maybe that would be quite a good way for Magnus Russ confrontation to go. But certainly I don't think he'd be a match for the Crimson King. I mean, I tell you what, actually, this makes me think, because we spoke about Mephiston the other day. If you made a Primarch a Psyker, Mephiston is he's so absurdly powerful. Rune Priest, sorry, that's the one. He's so absurdly powerful that like I'm not certain any of the Primarchs would match him. Like Mephiston is completely broken in his most recent novel. Battle Brother Casson, I have no money for membership or super chat, but if you see this Sandman of Terra, you're the best lore channel to me, hands down. Well, thank you very much. I mean, that means the world. I can't stress enough. But yeah, thank you so much, and please don't worry about it. Lorgar will land on a church world and have a full Homelander block art with the broken violin scene. I mean, that would, thinking about animations, how great would, like, all you'd have to do is the entire scene is just Demon Lorgar, maybe in like a human form or something like that, just walking through an imperial church, and the imperial cult around are just kind of losing their minds as columns start to collapse and everything starts to fall in. They have no idea what's going on. It's just all this screaming, and he just kind of like walks through calmly, and then as he leaves, he transforms into Demon Lorgar. God, that'd be cool. There's so many just like little things you could do. Today got me thinking about what kind of little episodes they could do for Warhammer 40k. It would be amazing. I used to want the Eldar to make a comeback until I watched Gav Thorpe talk about it. He basically makes a case for the Eldar needing to be on the cusp of annihilation, or they don't work in this setting. Interesting. If you're in the Discord, ping me that link. That would be a really interesting topic for a video. But I mean, yeah, he knows his Eldar, so I can't knock him. No, you don't misunderstand. Leman isn't a Psyker. He's a Rune Priest. Yeah, it's definitely not the same thing. Yeah, exactly. Was there ever a book or anything with the story of Isha being rescued by Nurgle, or was it just in a codex or something? It's just in a codex. What's the craft world called? They are actually quite an important craft world. Yeah, I can't remember what the craft's called. But yeah, they end up getting like frozen in the swamp and they turn into trees, I think it is. What are they called? Yeah, I think they're an orange craft world, if I remember correctly. What are they called? Lugganath. There you go. Lugganath. Yeah, it's just kind of codex lore, really. But I'm sure it's the kind of thing that does get referenced in books. I love how Mortarion gave some credit to the Silent Sisters. They probably the best thing that ever happened to them. Yeah, I mean, Morty has a big change. Now, of course, Silent Sisters will massively hurt him, which is quite funny. Which Primarch will get the Emperor's most powerful tool, his hair care routine? Yeah, that would be funny. Imagine someone gets like a wig. The Emperor's wig. That would be funny. But yeah, you could. It would be really hilarious if they just start getting, by the time the last Primarch comes back, there's just nothing left, and they end up just giving him like random stuff. Why can't Chaos choose to just make anyone as strong as Horus? So It's a great question. The exact logic of what goes on. So one of the things that you'll no doubt say if you ever read Vengeful Spirit is that like we don't see what happens really. We see a little bit. We see a conversation with the Red Angel, but we don't really see what Horus does to gain the favor of the gods. And people have wanted this lore for a long time. And so we don't know exactly what Horus had to do to get this power. Presumably, my assumption would be that Horus is a Primarch, so he has a especially powerful soul, which allows him to kind of control more power than maybe a standard human can. And in addition, the Chaos Gods don't always want to do this. They hate each other almost as much as they hate the Emperor. So they are constantly at war with one another, and very rarely do they put those differences aside. So that would be my natural assumption. But in theory, it could happen to other people. Certainly, we don't know exactly how powerful Luther becomes when he betrays the lion. But yeah, I mean, he's like kind of like a mini Horus, is how I would probably assume. I want Vulcan to be found, but he is a drunk who doesn't care anymore. He tried to kill himself, but he can't die. Then Magnus's good shard brings him back from sad Vulcan to awesome again. I don't know if... Yeah, I mean, exactly what they'll do with Janus. Because I think officially he dies. But, yeah, exactly what that means for the shard, I don't know. Maybe it goes into the warp. There'll definitely be something on that at some point, I imagine. But yeah, in terms of Vulcan giving up on the Imperium, maybe. I mean, there's a strong suggestion that the Khan gave up on the Imperium. In fact, there's not even a suggestion. There's a bit in the books that talk about how the White Scars often believe this. They believe their Primarch gave up on them. And this is a common belief amongst the White Scars, but they always keep it to themselves, because if they say it out loud, the chaplain will come along and bonk them on the head. So they have to, they have to keep it to themselves. But it says that this is actually quite a common belief. Doesn't Lorgar have the least demonic appearance because his special relationship? Depends what you mean by least demonic. Like, he's a big golden demon. It's pretty demonic. But I don't know exactly what you would consider most demonic is the thing. It would be crazy if the Emperor returned as the Star Child while still being on the Golden Throne, and then starting a civil war against himself. I think that probably will happen. I don't think they'll. I think that the ultimate end goal is to combine the two, but I don't think that the Star Child. But I don't think the Emperor will get off the Golden Throne before that happens. I think it would be fitting if the Khan got psycho powers, considering his conversation with Magnus on Prospero. Yes, I mean, the Khan and Magnus were always very close. So, yeah, it would make sense to some degree. But also, I think that because the Khan is thought to be one of the smartest Primarchs, it kind of makes sense to me. Ferrus Manus, his head goes back on his body. The Emperor's wig goes on his head. Ah, oh, poor Ferrus Manus. Just done watching Warhammer was so amazing, almost brought tears to my eyes. It was, I get what you mean. It was quite an emotional experience because it's just kind of cool. Like, I feel like we've been waiting for so long, right? Like we had this period where, I don't know about you guys, and like any Warhammer fan, there are many nerdisms I dabble in. And like, for example, D&D, of course, we had like Stranger Things, and we had that Community episode where they played D&D, which is like the funniest episode of any TV show ever. And then we had this news about like actually lots of celebrities like D&D, and there are secret celebrity D&D groups and all this kind of thing. And so, Warhammer fans, we were watching this for a long time and thinking, God, like it's going to happen. Like, nerdism is, even when I was in high school, many years ago, like even by the time I was leaving, like reading comic books was like genuinely kind of like becoming cool seemingly. Like people were bragging that they had read all the Marvel stuff and they didn't just watch the films. Do you know what I mean? And so Warhammer fans were kind of sitting there waiting, like, here we go. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. We're going mainstream. And then nothing happened for a while. And then, of course, one wondrous day, Henry Cavill said, I actually really like Warhammer. And then everyone lost their minds. And all of my fiance's friends were like, so this Warhammer thing that you like, what is that? and I got to tell them, which is pretty cool. Just showed them the first 3 Horus Heresy books, kept it simple. But yeah, now Warhammer has become, more into the public eye, and it's becoming like kind of mainstream, as it were, and that's pretty exciting. They only needed a champion that juiced up to a counter threat as powerful as Big E. Without him on the scene, there isn't a threat to Chaos as a whole, so they will go after each other. Yeah, I think so. And I think that makes sense. And I think that's probably why, like, Therador Yang is like being set up as some sort of big character. I've spoken about her a lot in the previous stream, so I won't go into that again today. Check out the video on the Abaddon's plan to kill kill Guilliman. Although he may have tried to kill Abaddon Horus if he came back. But Therador Yang is being set up as some sort of big character, and I think the most likely thing is she's some sort of kind of like a lot of people use like the term like Chaos Saint, like it gets thrown around quite a lot in Warhammer, but she's probably the closest we've had. She's basically this very unique character, and not more powerful than just like a simple sorcerer. She has been kind of touched by all the 4 Chaos Gods. Anyway, I think that the reason for that is because they're aware that maybe they'll need another champion, and perhaps they trust her over Abaddon. Thank you for the super chats, Siggy Vulcan and Pubquiz blah blah blah. How does Chaos view Tyranids and vice versa? So they obviously don't like each other. The High Fleet Kronos has evolved to try and, which are Tyranids that basically can focus on demons and have adapted to fighting against demons and have resistance to the warp more than other Tyranids. And the forces of Chaos, of course, don't really like the Tyranids. However, presumably they like the chaos pardon the pun. They like the havoc that the Tyranids cause the Imperium, their enemy. So they're perfectly happy to sit by as worlds get decimated and kind of pick through the pieces. However, generally Chaos likes people, humanity surviving, because that helps them grow and get empowered further. There's a very famous scene in Devastation of Baal where I'm complete mind blank now. What's his name? Complete mind blank. Kobanda, who is this demon who has a long history of Sanguinius. Kobanda takes this. He actually kind of, when the Great Rift opens, he and a bunch of Khorne demons kind of pour out onto one of the, I think Baal Secundus, and they destroy all the demons on there. Because the Karbanda has declared that if anyone's going to wipe out the Blood Angels, it's going to be him. So, you get things like this. But is Titus the Star Child? Unfortunately, I don't think we'll go that far. I love where your head's at. I love it. And I think that we're definitely going to see some sort of connection with the Emperor. But I don't think we're going to see Titus be the Star Child. Seeing all this VTubers playing Space Marine 2 was when I knew. Good, great to hear that. Yeah. I feel like the Space Marine 2 big hype kind of went nowhere, although it's not like I'm keeping up with quarterly sales reports. I get what you mean. It was kind of like a big bump, but yeah, it kind of dies out. And then that often happens, And to be honest, that's to be expected, right? Like, it's never going to stay. It's, not everyone that plays the game is going to stick around, but, a few will do. And no doubt, in the years to come, you'll meet people at the tabletop game who said they got into it through Space Marine 2. I mean, there are plenty of people that got in through Dawn of War. That was a much less successful game. I would love to see a short story like The Civil War in Rothanon, told as an introduction to Warhammer for those who are worried about Space Marine overload. I mean, yeah, Space Marine overload doesn't particularly worry me. I guess I love Space Marines, is the bias I have, but Space Marines are the most popular part of the franchise. And so there's a reason for that. Right, there is a reason. They're just fucking great. Cool. All right, I am starting to lose my voice now, so I think I'm going to call this stream here, guys. But thank you so much for joining me for this stream. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think in the comments. And tomorrow I think we're going to go through more lore on Lieutenant Titus, because we've had quite a bit of background lore on him now, and with this Amazon TV show that's come out, I feel like the final pieces of the puzzle are falling into place. So let me know what you think. And are you excited? If you are genuinely worried about Space Marine 2, put in the comment, like, what is it you're worried about? Because I do care about that, and I appreciate I have my biases, so I'm probably less concerned than others. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all tomorrow for the next episode of Lawless.
And that's a wrap for today's stream. If you enjoy these kinds of Warhammer 40k lore breakdowns and discussions, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell notification so you don't miss me going live. For those of you who want extra content and to support the channel, consider clicking the join button. Becoming a member will give you access to more videos and streams, and our Discord community, where you can chat with other lore enthusiasts and myself. Thanks again for watching, look out for any Chaos or Genestealer cults in your area, and I'll see you next time.